Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma and Zach Celadonia.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Joe Kuzma, and check out who's back. Back again, back for the first time. His name is Zach Celadonia. We know him better as Flash. What's been going on, my friend?
Camp. same old, but camp. Real football to talk about. Can't wait, dude.
Almost.
There's a game this weekend.
Yeah, almost real football. I mean, it's still dudes in shorts, and there were some pads and some hitting this last week or so, but I haven't spoken to you since camp started, have I? I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think it's been a couple weeks since I've been on. We were going to meet up the one time, but both of our schedules kind of took over. But that's good because there's more meat on the bone. We have more to talk about.
Yes.
Pretty much practices 1 through 12 or whatever this is now. I haven't gotten to say anything or comment about how I feel about what's been going on, which, spoiler alert, I feel great about what's been going on.
Oh, as you should. As you should.
Yeah.
I haven't talked to you. I think even like the Quan Alexander news I did by myself. And you were required for that show. You were required for the Quan Alexander stuff.
Dude, I tried filming a video of myself like reacting in my car parked out front, but I did like 20 takes, man. And we're all our own biggest critics, right? I couldn't find a take that I liked where I was like enunciating properly or like getting my tone right. So I didn't end up posting anything, but I was pretty vocal with my thoughts on Twitter, just, in tweet format.
Yeah,
or X, I forgot.
Yeah, I was going to say, you haven't even been around since it became X. It seems so long ago. I know, I have to still change. We're adding things. I'm trying to move some added graphics to this. If you're watching on YouTube, thanks wherever you are watching or listening, as always, and supporting us. We got actual football to talk about Friday. Yeah, I got to change the little birdie down here. Are they still tweets? Like, they changed it to, like, posts. Now, I'm like, man, this is too generic. I'm like, go back. This is like, I don't know. You may have been too young for this. Did you have the Netflix mail-in service with the discs?
No, but I knew people that did.
Yeah, they tried to change the name of that from Netflix to something called Quickster way back in the day. Google this if you've never seen it. It is probably one of the worst like rebranding ideas ever. Like they pulled back on it. Like the actual website had already been like changed over. They changed like the logos and stuff. They were going to change the .com name, and there was this huge like outcry. And they said, well, we're not going to do that because they were trying to maybe separate like the mail-in service versus they were just starting the streaming stuff. Yeah. And it was just, it sucked. Like it's better as well be new Coke.
X might be doing that someday soon here. Cause I know a lot of people, I mean, I struggle calling it that. I feel like I'm being like a try hard calling it X. It just feels so forced, It's like, it reminds me of like a kid telling his parents like, oh, call me Dragon from now on, like from Step Brothers.
Yes.
It just feels like it doesn't feel smooth coming out.
Nighthawk.
Yeah, call me Nighthawk. I'm going to keep calling it Twitter and referring to them as tweets. It's going to be hard to train my brain the other way. It's kind of like Heinz Field and Acrashore.
Yeah, we shall ride majestic, translucent steeds through the mists of Avalon, if that's what you mean. So anyway, I'm big. I'm a big Step Brothers dude, man. I know like almost, and I probably butchered the quote anyways. But aside from that fact, there is real football. We haven't got to talk about training camp. I went through all 90 players. What did I do with my roster? Oh my goodness. Like I'm falling apart over here. I had my 90-man roster. It must have fell on the floor.
That's okay. I got most of the roster in my head.
Yeah. I mean, if I went through all 90 players and I had something to say, even if it was me saying I have nothing to say about Tanner Morgan, I still said something about Tanner Morgan. So
yeah,
it's
Clemson
kind of,
legend.
Yeah, well, he's not going to play in this game. So guy's not getting any reps in camp. You want Kenny to play? And how much do you want Kenny to play if you do want Kenny to play? Preseason game 1, this isn't really like dress rehearsal, but he's still a year 2 guy, first full camp installed as a starter. Do you have a little apprehension about your quarterback getting hit?
Are you talking about Kenny Pickett or Kenny Robinson?
I think we know which Kenny I'm talking about. Kenny Robinson. Now, Kenny Robinson would need a big. Kenny Robinson's been okay. He's been balling. He might get a practice squad spot, but 53 man.
I'm a Kenny Robinson guy. We'll get to him a little later, dude. I like Kenny Robinson and what he's been bringing to the table. He's been working with the starters, so that's why I wasn't sure he meant until he said quarterback at the end there. So I got that part.
Yeah, got a Kenny Robinson story real quick. Friday Night Lights with the cousin, like walking around with the football, getting autographs and stuff, and people were like going up. And some people have no clue who they're talking to. Like George Pickens has his hoodie on, but so does Allen Robinson, and they're up against the fence line, and people will look at the ball after the guy signed and try and figure out what the scribble, like the blotch, is that's on whatever they get autographed. And then some people are
You need the
handing
number.
over.
Got to get the jersey number.
Yeah, some of them have the numbers, but some of these guys were still wearing like warm-ups or whatever, like, or they might have had something else on, like a hoodie, you know what I mean? Like George Pickens had a hoodie on. So anyways,
Yeah.
or they got them like rolled up. And it's funny because they're standing up against the fence, so you might not be able to see the numbers. And I'm like, my cousin knows almost like everybody. You can picture him by face, which we've talked about this before. Being at like Penn's games, you see somebody like walking in the concourse and you're like, oh, I know that's a Steeler, but I haven't a clue who it is. And it was Kenny Robinson, actually, this story. And Kenny Robinson's like, hey, it's okay, man. We wear helmets all week long. We don't expect people to recognize us. But that same thing happened. The ball came back, and my cousin goes, oh, yeah, West Virginia, Kenny Robinson. He was like, yeah, I didn't expect you to recognize. It was like the one guy he didn't. I think Kenny's 49.
Wesley Uhler. I don't know if I'm saying his name right, but he actually DM'd me about Kenny Robinson because he's like a WVU grad. And he was like, dude, I love Kenny Robinson. Or like he sent me a highlight of his from college. And I was like, hell yeah, man, ride the train. So and he's another guy who probably would know who he was. And to answer your question, sorry, I went off there for a minute, but I want to see Kenny Pickett play for sure. I kind of side with Tomlin in his attitude about how he approaches the preseason, that he wants his guys to play. He wants them to get reps and get their feet wet, especially if they're guys who have lack of experience like Kenny does, you know? So I do want to see him get reps. He shouldn't be given the Ben treatment from the get-go, where Ben only had to play one preseason game for like 2 drives, one if he did really well in the first drive. So I don't think Kenny's like there yet to need that kind of treatment. I think you can play him, let him get his reps in, let him get ready for the season. And the same goes for a majority of the roster. You know, I can hear you out about Cam Hayward, TJ Watt, and Minkah Fitzpatrick, and Patrick Peterson as well. But the rest of the roster as a whole, they all should be getting their reps in the preseason. How much they get, though, that's a really big gray area, I think. I'm fine with Kenny in the starting offense and the starting defense starting the games and getting 2-3 drives in, depending on how much success or lack thereof they're having. But yeah, I don't understand. I noticed that today on Twitter or X, that there's a big outcry now from fans being like, it's dumb to play them. They should play them. And then at the same time, you have people in the comments being like, but they come out flat. So like, per usual, but football hasn't even started yet, but we already have the fan base split 3 different ways on how they want the starters to be deployed in the preseason. But I'm pretty much the same as Tomlin as far as this goes.
Oh yeah, you're exactly like Mike Tomlin in every aspect. You paint the barn red.
I've never heard anything nicer.
Yeah, found my roster. This is going to change too. Were there any transactions I've missed? I'm going to go look. I'm like, this might be, oh yeah, Jalen Elliott and Jamarcus Bradley yesterday. I kind of missed a little bit of that too. So my roster was valid for a while, but wherever Jamarcus Bradley is on this list, somewhere in the 80s maybe. Yeah, it won't matter. Jalen Elliott joining this. He's getting on the moving train a little late here. We'll see. So they got another safety. It signed Trenton Thompson before too. So you've got guys like you said, Minkah, and that was a good pick because Minka's been out for whatever personal family reasons, whatever. But I mean, he was actually injured last training camp. Like he was nursing an injury. He had something that got cleaned up or whatever. I don't remember what it was. Was it a shoulder or whatever? But I remember he was just kind of like observing and people were freaking out about that back then too. So DeMonte
He's already
Casey
back too. He's been back the past few practices.
Yeah, he came back Saturday. DeMonte Casey's been like kind of palling around. Like he should be back out there. He's been out there, but he hasn't been practicing.
He was running around today, I saw.
Yeah.
There was a highlight posted of Kenny hitting Deontay for like a 20-yard touchdown. It was right over Casey.
Cool. Yeah, and he's so Casey is listed with Keanu Neal as co-starter. The depth chart. So the depth chart and the amount of playing time and some of that stuff, we got to go through that again. Wins, losses do not matter. This preseason game, I'm not doing a cheat sheet podcast for this one. Go to Steelers.com. It's on. Actually, you know what? I could bring that up real quick. I was going to mention this just at the beginning. Hold on a second. This is 506sports.com. Go there. It'll tell you basically everywhere that the game is available on TV, and you've got all the flagship radio stations that never change if you look those up, or Sirius XM. But KDKA Channel 2, the Steelers stuff is on the left side. So you've got Altoona, Harrisburg, Scranton, Erie. Columbus, Ohio is carrying this one, as is Youngstown, which must just be different between the CBS and NBCs, because I know the Browns are playing at like 7:30. A lot of games this Friday around the NFL. So, but it isn't a nationally broadcast game, so you have to be in one of these markets. So, including Wheeling, Roanoke, Virginia, and in 3 places in Alaska: Anchorage, Fairbanks, and Juneau. And then if you're down in Florida, Tampa, Orlando, Gainesville. And then it says in the Green Bay and Cincinnati markets, it will be on NFL Network, which makes absolutely zero sense to me. So, actually, believe it or not, right below it, the Browns feeds, yeah, they're on the corresponding the other channels, ABC and whatever. Back in my homeland of Youngstown, they're over on ABC channel 33. So, but that's pretty much it. Steelers.com. If you're in the local area, you don't have to worry about any of that. If you're not, then it gets dicey. You're going to need NFL Plus. So I know people are going to be like, it's going to be 7 o'clock, 7:05. I open up Facebook or see on Twitter, where's the game? And it's like, well, you come to the Steel City Underground podcast, schmoes, and we tell you where the game is. So, I mean, come on now. So anyways, and then they're going to be like, where's Kenny Pickett? Because they missed the beginning of the game before they go on like one of these like pirated feeds. And then it's like Mitch Trubisky start, and they miss all the good stuff, like Kenny hitting George Pickens for like an 80-yard TD, and then Kenny just gets yanked after 4 plays. So we'll see how that is. Baker Mayfield is getting the start, though. He's going to be playing. So I saw that, and he probably needs the time on the field in order to, I don't know, continue being a starting franchise quarterback in the NFL.
No, definitely, dude. This is Baker's last stand. If he can't beat out Kyle Trask, who sucks, I'm not sure if there's nothing else left for Baker out there. Right? He could be a career backup. You know, I mean, I heard an interesting conversation this morning on a podcast I like. They were talking about any top 10 quarterbacks ever drafted to go on to be successful backups. And they really struggled thinking of anybody, but right away, I was thinking of Byron Leftwich, Mitch, who's here right now.
Yeah, Mitch.
Baker could be that guy. I think Jameis has the potential to be a good backup long term. So, like, those guys exist for sure. And that could be Baker's fate, but this is his chance because they haven't gone out and tried to acquire anyone else. The Tom Brady rumors have finally kind of like settled and stopped, for lack of a better term. So it seems like this is going to be Baker's opportunity, unless he really bombs in the preseason, and then it'll be Kyle Trask's turn.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know if Trask sucks. We just kind of assuming.
I know.
You know. You're
him, Sam Howell. They're all the same.
Yeah. It's funny though that there's still people. I think people are finally coming around on Pickett though. So we'll see what it's like.
Definitely, there's been an uptake in respect from the media. I've noticed, and because they know, dude, they know they're as well connected as we are, and like there's no secret that this camp has been a complete different vibe than last year. You know, last year Kenny didn't have a bad camp, but at times I felt like I was watching paint dry or pulling teeth. I don't know which is the better way to describe it, but I felt like I was just hanging on the hook for anything positive I could see from Kenny. And there were positive plays in practice, but they were more scattered. You know, he wasn't stacking as many positive practices until towards the end of the preseason, where apparently in the Steelers' mind that was too late to win the job. This year, I can't pull up my phone for more than a second while they're practicing and not see him pushing the ball down the field. He looks quick. He looks decisive. He looks confident. He looks like, I already thought he was good. I thought he was on his way to being good, but he looks like a completely different guy just from a overall standpoint. Like he's doing everything better, all of the little things, and it shows in all the highlights, you know. And it isn't just highlights; it's all these little other videos you're seeing come out of one-on-ones and 7-on-7, 7 shots, the Steelers like to call them. So it isn't just team drills that you're seeing him like make the right choice and make the right read. He's dominating the practices. At least it seems like that. And I heard the other day the offensive group won 7 shots for back-to-back practices for the first time since Big Ben was quarterback. And I got that from Chris Carter, I believe. So it shows you like the arrow's pointing up, very literally. Like he can't spell it out any other way. So I have noticed an uptake in respect from the media and more people willing to come forward and say they think he's going to be good. He still gets his fair share of hate on Twitter, but or X, but that's a very hateful place most of the time. So I get that. But I was pleasantly surprised to see, I think it was Daniel Jeremiah in particular, his takeaway from coming to practice. He listed 6 bullet points, and they were all positive. And Jeremiah used to work for the Ravens, and very successful NFL scout, does Move the Sticks podcast. He's an NFL Network employee. And of his 6 bullet points, he mentioned Tomlin being a great coach. Facts. He mentioned George Pickens having the ability to be like a top 5 receiver. Facts again. And then he was like, Pickett is making a noticeable second-year jump. You can see it already. Facts.
Yeah, nothing but the facts. That's all we speak in. We just speak in facts. The 7 shots thing, that's kind of interesting. I didn't really think that. I'm wondering, that was one of the 2 practices. I think that was Saturday. Like, they actually might have won that, but it was only like 4 out of the 7 or 5 out of the 7.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it was like, close. They won today again, though.
Yeah. I mean, some of that's just like the way they're going to operate and run the plays too. So it's like, as far as like some of the training camp reporting, I see like a lot of bad reporting from training camp too. Like Friday Night Lights, for example, Kenny going like 11-12. And I was like, well, that's wrong. I know that's wrong because he had an incomplete pass he only had like one. The only play that I saw while out at camp where Kenny didn't look like he was on the same page with someone, well, maybe 2, but it really wasn't Kenny. The first one was the Joey Porter Jr. interception last week. And Joey just jumped this ball. Cody White never turned, looked for it. Looks like Cody was running something different than maybe.
That was Mitch.
Was wrong. It wasn't Mitch. It was.
Are you talking about 2-minute drill?
No, not 2-minute drill. It was Kenny.
Yeah, that was Kenny. Yeah. I thought you meant Porter's first interception. No.
It was the 2-minute drill, and it was the first team.
Wait, so Kenny didn't go 11-12, but he said he had 1 incompletion. That would be 11-12.
Well, no. This was Friday Night Lights.
Yeah.
The second one, so the first one was there was a miscommunication with Allen Robinson. Well, not even a miscommunication. I think Robinson was like the 4th option. Everything got busted up. Kenny rolls left and then just kind of puts one like kind of almost in the dirt / sideline. It didn't even really make it to where it needed to be. It was just like it was a busted play pretty much. And the defense was the credit for it. It was coverage. I guarantee you it wasn't where he was supposed to go. And he's holding on to the ball forever too, because they're not really pass rushing or going to tattoo him, right? The second one was back of the end zone kind of deal, and George Pickens ran out and then back in.
That was the one that was mentioned, that Pickens went out of bounds first.
Yeah, that was the one. We know who reported it, but they were wrong. So
he was 11-13?
Yeah, it was more 11-13.
Oh, dude, come on. Jesus Christ. You said that like he went like 6 of 10.
No. But you know what? You got to be careful.
I don't mind you just in the reporting, but you got me deflated about Kenny's performance.
No, not at all. But
that he went 11-12. No, 11-13 is fine.
No, the most important thing is that there was like really only one play where he wasn't in sync with everybody else. So
yeah. He's in command.
Yeah, definitely in command. So looking at this depth chart, looking at some players, we said would be. We've been talking about Kenny for a little bit here. Kenny's definitely in. All the quarterbacks are in except for Tanner Morgan. I don't think Tanner Morgan plays at all. You're going to see a lot of Mitch, and you're probably going to see a decent amount of Mason Rudolph, especially in this week 1 game. The Mason stuff is probably going to be pretty ugly because there's a lot of like would-be, the grocery baggers and, door-to-door sales, future door-to-door salesmen that are going to be in the game at this point, particularly in this first week.
The line specifically, because I actually like the bottom of the roster receivers and tight ends, because I hear Rodney Williams, who won't make the team. He's the Steelers' 5th tight end, if you've never heard that name before. He's having a good camp.
Yes,
and then you got guys like Cody White, Hakeem Butler, and maybe Gunner and Calvin Austin, to a certain extent, getting their reps with him a little bit. So he's got the weapons, kind of. But yeah, the line is going to be – that's always the issue in preseason, because the drop-off from a starting offensive line to, like, all backups to projects, it's each step of that is severe. It's like you're jumping off a cliff every time.
Yeah, it really is. And that's kind of important with the wide receivers. Cody White would probably be one that needs to have a pretty strong game, but we talked about this before. Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, they're at the top, and Allen Robinson. So they have 3 different starting wide receivers on this depth chart. Then they have listed behind Deontay Miles Boykin, behind Allen Robinson, Calvin Austin III, who's also the starting punt and kick returner. So it looks like he's going to supersede Gunnar Olszewski, as we've been predicting all summer. Hakeem Butler is listed in this now as a backup to George Pickens. This is a guy that needs a lot. He needs to show it in the games, because and he's going to need, and it's going to be Mitch or Mason throwing to him, which doesn't, I don't think, sit very well for, he's just had like a lapse in concentration, in my opinion. He's got the size, he's got all the physical tools, but he's got to have it, like, you know, he's got to have the focus, he's got to have that there. Kelvin Austin has that, and hopefully that translates from camp to this preseason game. We get to see a little bit of Kelvin Austin do his little thing, a little shake and bake. And I got one other guy I want to throw out here that could kind of like leap into this, and I mentioned this during the 90 rundown, Jordan Byrd. And you probably haven't seen much of Jordan Byrd, but he's making little plays here or there. He's a guy that could easily creep up like a Damone Patterson, or what? Who else was there? Like Shakir Phillips, or what other wide receivers did we fall in love with?
Tyler Murphy.
Yeah, they didn't ultimately make the team in the end. And so Cody's got some competition here. They might only keep 5, because as we continue going through all of this, it's like, how many running backs do they keep? And then you're talking offensive line. Dan Moore Jr. is the starting left tackle, right? For now, I don't know that that's going to stick. Broderick Jones wasn't brought in to sit the bench, is something that I said.
Oh, dude, the writing is all over the wall like graffiti in a bad city, man. Every report that comes out is every reporter sees it coming, but they don't want to put their neck on the line saying it. They're all hinting at it. They're like, yeah, he's getting progressively better each day. Everything that he's bad at or like he needs to work on, he works on. He says all the right things. The Steelers themselves are very coy about, like, yeah, he's not starting right now, but we didn't pick him in the first round for no reason. I'm paraphrasing, but like the writing's on the wall. If he doesn't start week 1, I'll be pretty surprised, but it won't be very long after week 1. But I do think he wins the job week 1, and not to the fault of Dan Moore. It's just the skill level. The difference in skill between Broderick Jones and Dan Moore is the reason why the one was a top 15 pick and the other was a 4th round pick. It doesn't have to be like this crazy deep equation. It's a matter of Broderick Jones showing in camp that he's at least as good as Dan Moore, and the Steelers should be more than eager to get him out there and get him rolling.
I do like the thoughts, though, on the backup line, and you're probably going to have either Jones. We'll see where he's at. He might actually start, even though they have a depth chart. These depth charts throw it out the window. He might be out there starting. You don't know.
Yeah, definitely. They'll release a couple more, won't they?
Yeah, they will. They don't have to release players but once at the end of camp now. So
no, I mean the depth chart.
Yeah, depth chart. It's a weekly thing. The NFL mandates that. So, but Jones could be out there. Or maybe it'll be next week that he ends up starting in place of Dan Moore Jr. But you have Dan Moore Jr. drafted 2 years ago, 2021. This will be his 3rd year, right? Yeah. And Kevin Dotson the year before that. Draft. Yeah, and these guys have ample starting experience, and they're going to be backups. But then you also have Kendrick Green now listed as a backup center. Let me tell you, dude, it is an infectious energy seeing this dude like just motor around the field. Now he's getting carries.
I love it, dude. I love it. It's like I'm not being rude when I say this, but it's so funny. Like, he's so large, and to see him with the ball in his hands, doing well too. I heard the other day he missed a couple blocks, which that's classic Steelers to need to see him to be able to do the block. And it's kind of like ironic that a converted lineman to fullback, his worst part is his blocking right now. So it's like, you feel like that's the part that he should have down, but that's the part that he whiffed on a couple of blocks and cost a tackle in the backfield. I heard, like, it was either today or yesterday. So the Steelers are going to need to see him block as a fullback, to solidify the roster spot that they're trying to create for him. But it has been so cool to see Kendrick Green's near 300-pound ass rolling around out there with the balls in his hand, catching it out of the backfield, running over dudes. And yeah, the pop he gets from the crowd, it's awesome, man. He loves seeing a redemption story like this. So I'm definitely rooting for him.
He has pancaked people on blocks, though. It's like it's probably either or. I didn't see him miss any, but that might have been Sunday or today even. So, and he had been taking snaps as a center too, which I thought was
still doing
interesting.
Line work, yeah,
he's still doing line work, and he's still going back and forth between the two different groups, the tight ends and also the offensive line with some of the drills. And they had Ryan McCullum back there, but the 4th listed guy on here, Spencer Anderson, 7th round pick this year from the NFL draft, and Spencer has got an uphill battle to make this roster. Kendrick Green's like opening eyes and showing he could be a versatile dude. Then, I like how you said make a roster spot for him. It'd be pretty sick. I was opining about this the other day. I'm like, you line up, you got Kendrick Green and Jaylen Warren in the backfield, and then you put like Darnell Washington over on the one side with Dan Moore Jr. and Broderick Jones, and that's like your jumbo, that's your bigs. Like, and one of them guys is going to also be eligible. Well, the eligible tackle eligible would be Kendrick Green out of that group, I think. So that would be
Warren or
interesting.
either. Yeah, that jumbo package. There's got some serious potential, man. You want to. There's going to be Yinzers everywhere that are going to be excited to see that, because there's some people are on the fence about having a bully offense and a run-heavy offense. But when you're down close to the goal line, if you can just keep pounding it in from the 10, why not? It's kind of like we're going to do it till you stop us type mentality. And with blockers like that leading the charge for guys like Najee Harris and Jalen Warren, both of which who run very physical, that's something to look forward to with this red zone offense, which also has been looking more crisp throwing the ball from what I've seen from practice clips in the red zone. But yeah, the possibilities they have with jumbo packages and using multiple tight ends. And I mean, Gentry's no slouch. Like, he's a tower. So him, Darnell Washington, Broderick Jones, Kendrick Green, Dan Moore, if you like, the possibilities are endless.
Yeah, they really are. And you're not going to do this stuff with Kevin Dotson. I just think it's funny, like, when guys come to Mike Tomlin, or it's even in the preseason. I mean, that's how he found Alejandro Villanueva. It's how he found Rosie Nix. Like, these guys weren't playing in the positions that when he originally found them necessarily, and converted them to other spots, and they worked on it. And I know Mike Tomlin likes his large guys, but I mean, Green was supposed to be this, hey, just like Dermontti Dawson or Marquise Pouncey, it's supposed to be a guy that's going to be able to full block. And now you're gonna run him out there, trot him out there as like a fullback doing this, and it's just seeing him catch the ball and seeing Tanner Muse try and tackle him and miss and not even get him off of it. Like, he got unbalanced and put his hand down and still kept rumbling and got like some extra yards after that. And
yeah, old Tanner's having a rough go out there.
Yeah, so like, if we want to jump over the defensive side of the ball, which I think we should. I mean, Darnell Washington or somebody like that doesn't. The tight ends are set. Connor Hayward's on this roster. I go right to the linebackers to start.
Yeah, no. I'm sorry. Yeah, you pretty much covered it all. If we're talking like guys who need to have a good performance, you pretty much glossed over all of it there. I thought about listing all these names, and I was like, it's the first preseason game. If the theme is like who needs to have a good preseason, well, I'll be brutally honest. If Kenny and the first team offense comes out kind of slow, I'm not going to freak out and hit the panic button. They don't really need to have a great performance week one. I sure hope they do. It'll make my night better. It'll make the alcohol taste better. But if they come out a little flat, I'm not going to freak out. But as far as, Dan Moore, Chooks, Jones, Dotson, if he plays, I know he has a shoulder issue, Kendrick Green, Nate Herbig, I want to see all of them play well. And because they're almost all in competitions, and James Daniels isn't, and Isaac Seumalo isn't, and we believe Mason Cole isn't, but the tackle spots are in flux right now, and the backup lineman spots are in flux. So you could pick almost any name there aside from Daniels and Seumalo, and each one of them could afford, or they could use a really nice performance in week one in preseason to help their case. And I'll say also the bottom of the receiver depth chart. That's an easy one because you got guys all fighting for one or two spots, probably one spot, because the top four are filled with Pickens, Deontay, Robinson, and assumably Calvin Austin. It's like Calvin Austin A, Gunner B, it seems like. And then you got like, are they going to keep 6? Or if they just keep 5, it's going to be Gunner or Boykin with that last spot. So there's a serious battle going on at the bottom of the receiver depth chart as well.
Yeah, I didn't even I kind of discounted Gunner, even though he's been getting the ball a lot, but that's like Mitch. Mitch is always looking for those guys like low and underneath.
Well, Kenny the other day gave an interview saying that they asked him about the 4th guy, and he only mentioned Gunner by name, saying that some stuff about how Gunner is always where he needs to be. And that I heard last week that he was quietly having a good camp. So there's a lot of hate out there for Gunner for the stunts he pulled last year. And I totally get it. 1 mental error. Okay. 2 mental errors. Shame on me. Get this guy out of town. But the fact of the matter is the Steelers still like him. And if he loses the return battle to Calvin Austin, it's going to be harder for him. But he's got value, and the Steelers as a staff like him, and Kenny Pickett likes him. So he's certainly a strong sleeper to make the team again.
Yeah, I like the word sleeper. Should have maybe did that but not everybody here is necessarily like 100% sleeper. So you mentioned Tanner Muse. I was like, so that's what I was saying. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I've got everybody on the offensive side of the ball totally clear. When you get over to the defense, some of the inside linebackers are need some help here because they signed Quan. Landon Roberts isn't going anywhere, I don't think. Cole Holcomb's not going anywhere at all whatsoever. There's three dudes right there. And we don't even get over to the edge rushers that aren't moving anywhere. You've got 4 spots locked down for sure between TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, the rookie Herbig, and then Marcus Golden. So those, yeah. So already we just rattled off 7 names. So for anybody like when you're looking at the backups here, Tanner Muse. Yeah, Tanner Muse is here. So you still got Mark Robinson. He's listed as a backup for Roberts. Quan Alexander is listed as Cole Holcomb's backup. So now Robinson would be 8. And then you've got Tanner Muse and Chappelle Russell listed as your other insides on this depth chart. And then
Kwiatkowski.
And Kwiatkowski is the last one. And Kwiatkowski is going to need to do something as well. And with guys like Muse or Kwiatkowski, it reminds me of like Arthur Motes. It reminds me of when Tomlin talks about junior varsity and varsity, and he will use those words. And if those guys don't look like varsity out there against 3rd or 4th or 5th string Tampa Bay players that are just also just kind of camp bodies, that's going to spell a lot of trouble because there's just not a lot of space. And if you look at the edge guys too, overall, the other linebackers like David Perales or Quincy Roche, Toby Ndikwe, there's just not room on this roster for those guys. And don't forget that like Keanu Neal has dabbled as a linebacker too, and he may even be the 3rd down kind of guy they put in the middle of the field if they deploy like 3 safeties. So it's going to be
the Steelers like to do.
Yeah, it's going to be an uphill battle for these guys. I mean, Tanner Muse and Kwiatkowski definitely have to show something. I think Mark Robinson's looked pretty good too. He'll have to show, but I mean, I think his spot's safe for now. He's still somebody that they realize we're reserving this because we're working with this guy to see what he's like in years 3 and 4 and maybe be down the road.
We're on the same page. I had Mark Robinson as a guy. I have the battle at nickel corner going on, and Mark Robinson as my defensive players who need to have a good first preseason game. I could have thrown in Tanner Muse and Kwiatkowski, but I don't think either of them are making the team. No disrespect, but I wrote down Robinson because he is a legitimate shot to make the team, I think. And if he has a good performance, that'll help him succeed with that goal. And I like him. You know, he got some time last year. He seems to have more value in the Steelers' eyes whenever they are playing run-heavy teams because he's a very physical, downhill kind of guy. So I think there's a role for him on this team. It's kind of specific, but it's there if he seizes it. And the battle at nickel corner is just so fascinating to me, dude, because I feel like a lot of people are making a big deal out of, and I get this because I'm looking forward to this too, but the idea of Patrick Peterson bumping into nickel and putting out Joey Porter and Levi Wallace all at the same time. That is going to be something that I feel like the Steelers do early and often throughout the season, barring injuries and whatnot. But at the same time, you still have a battle going on there for the pure nickels on the roster because you're hearing a lot of different things. Shannon Sullivan is a guy who I'm looking forward to watching because they signed him very under the radar style. They signed him during the middle of the draft. And this is a guy who has been a starter in this league, 3 interceptions in 2021, real slow year last year, a couple years with the Packers and the Vikings. He's got starting material. He's got good ball on tape, nothing out of this world, but he's been deployed with the first team defense at times with Peterson outside. Luke Barku has been a guy, an XFL guy. He's been racking up interceptions lately at camp. And I got a soft spot for my XFL guys. You know that.
Yes.
I do like the fact that Barku has really good ball skills. He led the NCAA in interceptions his last year at school. I think he something in the double digits, but it was an impressive number. So he gets his hands on the football, and he's been getting better. So I like Luke Barku. And Elijah Riley is the last guy who seemingly from the first couple practices was getting looks with the first team defense at nickel and filling in at safety when Casey was injured. Elijah Riley is a guy who last year we picked him up and I'll say this, there were a couple names that kind of poked their heads out of the ground and were like, oh, this guy, he's actually not bad. He might make the team. Didn't make an impact at all for the Steelers last year, but was retained on the practice squad and given a futures contract or whatever. So he's been sticking out in a positive way. And finally, you have Duke Dawson, who's a former second-round pick of the Patriots, I believe, out of Florida, just has been injury riddled his whole career, always faces some kind of big injury, hasn't been able to really find his footing, kind of like a Senquez Golson, but has actually been able to play at times. And he really hasn't been having that great of a camp, but I just felt like I should throw his name in there just at the rate of it's funny how similar all of these guys are. Like they all could be that nickel, but at the end of the day, right now it seems like Patrick Peterson will be that guy getting a lot of action in there, assuming if Joey Porter and Levi Wallace can play outside. Regardless of that, I am still looking forward to this battle going on between Sullivan, Barku, Riley, and Duke Dawson, trying to see if any of them can play well enough for the Steelers to feel like maybe we don't have to use Peterson in the slot every nickel package. Maybe we can rotate him in. If one of these guys can stand up and have a good performance or stack a couple of performances, they surely could find themselves on the 53.
Yeah, no, you put a lot. You're taking a lot of what I was going to say, which is always good. We're on the same. No, we're on the same page here. Especially Barku. The only thing that kind of alarmed me, and maybe it shouldn't be an alarm because the depth charts, when you look at them, they're just sometimes they're thrown together. You should just take it with a grain of salt type deal, right? And pulling that up, Barku is listed behind Chris Wilcox, but I think Wilcox is already. Let's see. We'll find out. Has Wilcox been in camp?
I don't even know who that is. Chris Wilcox.
You know what? Though that's unfair. I have seen Wilcox make a couple of plays because you pick up. So I end up picking up my roster, and I'm like, okay, is he wearing 25? Did I commit that to memory? No, Wilcox wears 30. So and the guys that are double numbers, that's always like trouble. And I'm like, okay, what's going on with Quan Alexander and Anthony McFarland?
I know. You were mentioning that earlier.
Anthony McFarland. We didn't talk about Anthony McFarland earlier.
Yeah, well, I think he's having a great camp. Yeah. I would like for him to have a good game, but I think he has a firm hold on the RB3 spot. But I hope he has a good game. I'm a McFarland truther. Every year they use him a little bit more and more in camp. And I get excited about the ideas of him being like, our own version of Alvin Kamara, basically, or just this pass catching back that's a new weapon. And this is the most I've seen him used in practice so far. So it's kind of going with the usual theme, but this seems like his best camp thus far, McFarland. But there was a funny clip the other day of the Steelers account. They posted on Twitter, Quan Alexander walking down to practice, and you could hear a kid in the background going, Anthony, because he thought he was McFarland because all he saw was his number.
That's great. Oh, man.
He won't be wearing 26 when the season starts, folks, so don't worry about that.
No, don't go buying your Alexander jerseys. I'm all in on buying a number 80, though. I've convinced myself that's the first rookie jersey I'm going to buy. Washington.
I've been so pleasantly surprised from the fans who there were quite a few like that I know personally and that I have seen just online kind of like give the Steelers a little bit of like, why'd they pick a tight end with that pick? And like, it didn't take long for people to realize like, okay, this guy's going to make an impact as a rookie. He's a freak, like very high ceiling. And his floor this year is going to be a really good blocker who contributes in the pass game sparingly. But I expect him to be used as a pass catcher as well throughout his career.
Yeah. And I was looking back on McFarland did a lot of the heavy lifting, 7 carries, 56 yards, 8 yards per carry average. And he had a 24-yard long as part of that against the Seahawks in last year's 32 to 25.
8 yards per carry, dude. I forgot he put on that kind of. Those are Barry Sanders numbers.
Barry Sanders. He didn't catch any passes, but then he only got like 2 carries in each of the next 2 games, so 4 more. He didn't even double up there. So
you know what? They got away from throwing to the running back as a whole last year as an offense. I hope they get back this year. They seem like they are.
Yeah, and I just wonder though, like. Will they keep like 5 guys that are like the backfield? It's like before when we talked about when they kept David Johnson like as an H-back, right? And if you're trying to create this spot for Kendrick Green and or Connor Hayward, who kind of are like position neutral or whatever, they're versatile guys. They kind of master, jack of all trades, master of none type deal, like a Jalen Samuels too fits into that kind of category. Where's that league leave McFarland? Because if you have Harris and you have Warren and you have McFarland and then you have Connor Hayward and then you have Kendrick Green and then you also have 3 tight ends, Like that math doesn't add up to keep, more than 5 wide receivers too. So
that's exactly why I think my usual preferred style of 6 receivers won't be achieved. I like having 6 receivers, but yeah, this roster is very tight end and running back heavy. And receiver, it's also, I mentioned a couple minutes ago, there's a stiff battle going on at the bottom of the top group there, but I have a hard time thinking that Connor Hayward's spot isn't, pretty much locked up. Kendrick Green, fair enough, he's still fighting for a spot, but they're going to keep 4 tight ends. They're not going to cut Darnell Washington. They're not going to cut Zach Gentry. They're not going to cut Connor Hayward. And Freiermuth, he's the starter. So that's locked in. And running back, Najee Warren locked in. I feel like McFarland pretty much is, if they want to have 3, unless he totally bombs the preseason. So that's already 7 spots. So yeah, it's like if they want to keep Kendrick Green, that's your 8th. As the specific position. And it seems like they are hell bent on making that a possibility, which I'm all for if he can rise to the occasion.
Yeah, we're going to have to discuss the 53 because I did one like a month ago or something, and I've got a change of opinion. You got like Quan Alexander that's been added, and there's some, and now Kendrick Green, like it was a guy that I was like, nope, we're out on him. No way. And I'm always wrong about like whether they keep like 8 or 9 offensive linemen. I'm usually wrong. I usually have them at 8, and they usually end up keeping 9. That would create a spot for Kendrick Green. It doesn't include all those other things, and maybe you technically have Hayward as a fullback or tight end, but then it's like the 3 tight ends. But I do think Zach Gentry could be a bubble guy there, depending on all these other numbers. We didn't even mention.
It'd break my heart, but it could be, I guess.
Miles Boykin, though, too, special teams. I don't think he's going anywhere. It's like
I didn't even mention him because I just view him as a special teams guy, and I think unless again, I keep saying this phrase, but it holds true. Unless he bombs the preseason, Boykin really should be your 5th guy, which leads me to my worst take of the week. What's his name? Jeff Hawthorne. I'm sorry if that's not your name, but he works for the Fan or whatever. He said to Donnie Football, who also works for that network, that Calvin Austin isn't a guarantee to make the roster. I don't know what we're doing anymore. He's not a guarantee to make the roster. Sure, I guess by legal definition, he's not a guarantee to make the roster, but he's very clearly the 4th in the pecking order in camp thus far, when it isn't Gunner anyway. I mean, and they're 2 very specific or 2 very different skill sets. Calvin Austin has something that nobody else on the roster has, and that's a true ability to take the top off the defense entirely. He's got next level speed. He has a gear that Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, and Allen Robinson obviously can't hit. Pickens and Deontay can both push vertically, but they can't take the top off like Calvin Austin can. And on top of that, he's been having a phenomenal camp. He's been one of the stars of camp all off season long. So I think Jeff is just throwing something at a wall and seeing if it sticks, trying to get clicks, and I'm giving him what he wants. But when I saw that, I was like, you're trying too hard, man. And this happens every year. It's like, oh, this guy's having such a good camp and the fans love him. Well, let me tell you why you're stupid. Like, it's usually the older Pittsburgh media that comes through with some kind of tone like that. And yeah, last night it was Jeff, because that kicked me out of my chair. I was like, how could they not think Calvin Austin, or how could he not think Calvin Austin is going to make the team? What are they going to keep 3 receivers? Because he's pretty clearly the 4th guy right now. It seems that way.
Oh no, he most certainly is.
They have a role for him. They're giving him the ball a lot in offense. He's working with the ones. So I don't know, just an outlandish statement from Jeff. So Jeff, congratulations. You win the 2nd ever worst take of the week.
Yeah, that is a very terrible take. Maybe that's where Jim Wexell was getting this from, because Jim had tweeted out something similar, and he was about what are you people looking at? And I was big on Calvin Austin last year. In fact, I may have even tweeted this last year, X'd it, posted it, whatever it is now. But it was that Calvin Austin made Mitch Trubisky look better than Mitch Trubisky actually was, because
definitely.
Yeah. Deontay wasn't out there. He was quiet, doing the, sitting out or standing in or whatever the hell you call it when he was wanting his contract. So he wasn't like fully practicing, and Austin was getting all these reps, and then he got hurt before they got pads on and before they were playing in the first preseason game. So nobody got to see him, but they're not going to give up on a guy in year 2, especially a guy that's position flexible. He can definitely play all over. Like you said, he was the 3rd, I think he was the 3rd fastest wide receiver in that draft class. And 5th. He had
a couple first rankings too. I don't know if it was his 30-yard shuttle or what, but he had a couple guys beat for the first spot as far as quickness is concerned. But yeah, he was he's named in like some of the fastest receivers ever to run at the combine. So he's got that next gear, and different from guys like who just retired. The guy from the Bengals, Josh, I can't remember his name, from
Ross.
Washington.
John Ross.
John Ross.
John Ross.
John Ross. Yeah, it's different. Like John Ross was a track guy who happened to also play football. Calvin Austin's a football player who just has elite speed. So I think it was kind of ridiculous to come out and say, I think he's just trying to be different and a contrarian. Oh, there's no guarantee he makes the team. Look, I get it if you're kind of sick of people being like excited for what he's going to bring because he hasn't done anything yet. But give the kid some props from coming back from a season-long injury and having a stellar camp.
Yeah, absolutely. And he catches, like, he really does have an incredible catch radius. Now, how's the combat catches going to work when he's like 5'7" or 5'8"? He's a tiny guy, 5'9", whatever he is. I don't know. Those extra 2 inches can make all the difference in the NFL.
Yeah, you just don't put him in positions like that. You try not to. I mean, Tyreek Hill doesn't catch 50-50 balls.
Yeah, you're not going to have to because look at all the other dudes that are out there. In fact, I had an article about like the sleepers at camp just today too, over at steelcityunderground.com, and Calvin Austin, I put him right in there with Allen Robinson because you're looking at him as basically like wide receiver threes when you're looking at Deontay and you're looking at George Pickens, and both of those guys are going to eat. Everybody else is going to eat too. I mean, Darnell Washington is insane, and we already love Pat Freiermuth. I mean, there's just so much going on here that, to be completely honest, throwing the ball to Kendrick Green should be the last thought in Matt Canada's mind. Like, but it could work, and it might just work because there's just so much. There's so much room for activities.
Copycat league, bro. Copycat. I'll leave the people with this. Look at the Ravens. They turned Patrick Ricard into an All-Pro. Pro Bowl fullback, and that guy was playing on the line in college. And he's a house. He's good at his job. He does multiple things, and the Steelers may have thought they can salvage Kendrick Green's career the same way.
Yeah, I was looking up Calvin Austin's 40-time 4.32.
That's moving.
That is really moving.
I think Wallace ran a 4.39. Mike Wallace.
Trying to see here. I am on Larry Brown Sports right now. I'll pull it up. Join along with me here. What did he got? First of the wide receivers to run a 40-yard dash. Oh, yeah, I want more alerts. And flying down the line, let's see. There it is. 39-inch vertical, which tied him for the best amongst receivers. And then his
maybe he can't catch a 50-50 ball.
11.3 broad jump. So yeah, like look at that, man. When you're talking about that's insane. Like he's explosive. He's not a big dude whatsoever. So hold on, let me get his size, what they have him listed at with lifts or heels or whatever he might have.
He's 5'9",
162. I mean, he is noticeably tiny because when he enters the huddle, he's got to stand next to like Broderick Jones and Darnell Washington, and he just, he gets lost in there. It's like, okay,
5'9" is a perfectly average height for an adult male.
Okay, I see where you're going with this, but even you would have to stand in front of me for team photo day, okay?
Oh yeah, I've told my buddies, I was like, you see Tyreek Hill? That's what I would look like out there playing football. Not that fast, but like that's my size.
Compared to Tyreek Hill. I don't know if you caught one of the pods, but I compared Kenny Pickett to Troy Aikman, and I'm not sure everybody really liked that, but I said, Troy's a double Hall of Famer, college and pros, but he's not the first guy you think of when you think of Hall of Fame quarterbacks, right?
Yeah.
But accurate and had great wide receivers and tight ends and a great run game.
No, I'll take it. I'll take it. I heard another name that was similar to his tossed around before. I think it was Steve Young. But it's like Steve Young's got a little more like a little more positive view in the public eye. But as far as his mobility is concerned, they all were number 8, which is funny enough.
Oh, that is something. I didn't think about that with you. I thought about Young because Young was a very accurate guy, but I thought about the mobility, and I don't know. Maybe Young's just a little different because he was in the USFL and then he was Montana's backup, and of course,
the different career arcs for sure.
Yeah, so maybe I didn't, but I hear people throw around like, and we've said this before, a lot of Joe Burrow-like qualities, and I'm starting to hear more of that, and it's like, hello, welcome to the dance, welcome to the party here. We've been telling you this.
That was part of what Daniel Jeremiah said on his breakdown on NFL Network. That was part of his bullet points, was he has Burrow-like qualities, and I was like, yes, dude, finally, some validation from like a NFL former pro scout.
Yes, it feels
also the Super Bowl champion team.
Yes, it feels good. And so yeah, what I'm thinking about is like some of this, and you make a comparison. Tyree, of course, you're the cheetah, the Flash instead of the cheetah, but
Yeah, I'm almost there. I could probably catch him. You give me a month to train, I'll race Tyreek Hill for
you'll
charity.
race Tyreek Hill. That'll be fun. Don't let Mark
You go
Madden bet on it.
backwards.
Don't let Mark Madden bet on it. Remember, he had that whole bet with Ryan Switzer, and then just dude got snake bitten from that, I think. Switzer, that
Yeah.
is. So yeah, Switzer was a fast guy. But see, that's where Kelvin Austin's so much different. Like people like to make those dumb comparisons. And
I was
um,
thinking the same thing. People like got on my case the one year because I was shocked that Switzer got cut, being Ben's boy. I think it was Ben's last year or second to last year. And I'll admit I was wrong about that. But Calvin Austin isn't like he's just Kenny's boy. Like he offers a whole different dynamic to this offense, and he has a lot of value. Even if Calvin Austin ends up with 20 catches this year, like not very impressive, right? But just to have that threat of a guy who's that fast, they can take the top of a defense. Once you establish 2 or 3 times that you can hit him deep, it makes life easier for George Pickens, Deontay Johnson, Pat Fryermuth, everybody, Kenny especially. It just opens things up.
yeah, Washington's going to do that too. I can't wait to see this. I don't think you're going to see all of it on display all at once. I do remember a preseason game down in against the New Orleans Saints. I want to say that opened up the 2017 preseason where Ben came out and it was like, you had AB. It might have even been 2016 because for some reason I'm thinking it was a touchdown to Sammy Coates, but they were loaded at wide receiver. Maybe even Martavis, and they just had the whole complement of everybody there. And
yeah, they overlap for a second.
Yeah, they just went right down the field, like 7 plays, 70, 80 yards, TD, and then stepped off. Like that was the dress rehearsal, and you were just like, oh my God. Like it was just amazing. So, but this team.
I remember Vic had a moment in preseason where he hit
Yeah.
Martavis Bryant for like an 80-yard play, and it was the same reaction. Like, oh, we're back, baby.
That was the first one. I was cooking that was my daughter's second birthday party, and I was watching like on my phone or something, and I was
The Mike
flipping
Vick one.
the Mike Vick one because he just signed, and Bruce Gradkowski had gotten hurt, and I'm watching
Yeah,
on my phone or something, flipping hot dogs on the charcoal grill out at some park for like 50 people, and all of a sudden, like I think like I might have like flinged a hot dog somewhere 10 yards away. It was Michael Vick. It was just like he just threw like a 60-yard bomb, and the dude was like, he was 36 years old, and he was past like his actual prime. He was no longer the guy that could just run around and get away with it, but he used to get away with like he could just stand in place, like no real drop, no remote, and just flick the ball.
Oh, just a flick of the wrist. Yeah, his arm talent is such a gift, dude. I mean, he had me thinking that he was going to be really good for us because of that preseason game.
Yeah, I know. But Landry Jones even had some good success with Martavis Bryant. Shame that that career ended the way it did. We'll see how these ones pan out. Yeah, I'm trying to think if I wanted to say anything else about anybody in the secondary because we kind of flipped through them real quick. I like the idea. I was floating the same idea. Patrick Peterson floating around like Cam Sutton used to. I think here's the one thing I'll say about nickel corner. I think it's just too much ado over nothing. I think it's a big nothing burger. This is like a position it might play 15, 20 snaps total.
What?
Less than a third. Nickel corner. The actual.
Oh no, dude! They play nickel so much.
They play nickel a lot, but that nickel is going to be Patrick Peterson moving around.
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, or a third safety. So it's not going to be the physical, actual. Shannon Sullivan, for example, wins this job.
I feel the same way.
Yeah, you didn't see Mollett that much. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I agree entirely. That's what I mean. It's a very niche spot that I was talking about earlier, because I do think Peterson will play like a majority there. But yeah, it's going to be not that many snaps. Just interesting to see who wins the job. And Kenny Robinson, I joked about him at the beginning of the show, but I hope he does well too, because that safety spot, the Steelers, they've been rather lucky, knock on wood, with injuries this camp. But safety's been one spot where like they've had a little bit of little problems with, Minka's personal problems, and then Casey got hurt, Neil got hurt. There's guys who are dinged up a little bit. So the door is open for a guy like Kenny Robinson to stick. And he's a fun story. He's been working with the first team defense, another former XFL guy who went to the XFL because he wanted to start making money right away to help his family. There's a whole great story on that if you look it up. But he did well in the XFL. XFL folded. He got a workout with the team, went back to the XFL, and now he's here in camp with us. And he's got skill. He's got talent. he got drafted out of the XFL into the NFL in like the 4th or 5th round and just didn't stick yet. But he's been having a pretty solid camp. So that's the last name I can think of. Another defensive back that hopefully can put together a good showing on Friday.
Yeah. Elijah Riley was on the 53 last year, was a safety.
Really?
Yeah. Like called up for maybe 2 games near the end of the season.
Okay.
Yeah, he was around. Remember, they had all those defensive back problems. There was one point where Minka had the appendectomy too. And remember,
That's
against
right.
Tom Brady, they just pulled any warm body off the streets out there. I think Riley might have been a part of that group too.
Quincy Wilson, go.
Yeah, GOAT for sure. He's listed as the second nickel corner on this depth chart, though. Elijah Riley is. So you might be on
Yeah,
something.
they like him.
And Mollett was a safety prior also with the New York Jets before he came to the Steelers. So that's something. And I'd be remiss to mention that James Pierre, he's been more or less like backup depth special teamer. He's hot cold. He'll get burned and then he'll make a big play. In camp, Trey Norwood has looked good as well. So
I think Pierre's a guy that has a roster spot in his hands, but he can lose it. But he's safe right now, I think, as the 4th guy.
Yep. Fair enough assumptions there, my friend. That's going to do it for us today. Zach, thanks for joining us once again. Always appreciate having you around, talking our foosball. We're going to have a game Friday. We'll see when I get around to doing post-game's tricky when you have a Friday game. So we'll see when we bounce back around to Olivians. I don't want to wait too long on it, but we'll see what happens with it. Because if it's like a boring game, then I think we'll just wait until early next week to do something and reconvene. Yeah. So just some programming notes there as well. And that'll do it for us. So enjoy, catch the game as you can. Maybe you'll catch some clips and highlights. We'll be back around either this weekend or early next week with a little bit of thoughts of what transpired. And until then, my name's Joe. His name's Zach. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Thank you for watching or listening wherever you may be. And until next time, we encourage everyone out there to be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.